Howdy folks, how's it going today? I hope everybody's doing really good. Well, things are starting to take shape here now. I say that. Uh, Things changed shape here a few minutes ago. I'll get to that in a minute. I just finished a video of some issues I had to deal with the neck after I pressed the frets back down. But anyway, we're getting close. I did dig out some 500K push-pulls. I had some wire already stubbed on them. So I'm thinking of going with two of those possibly because these can split. They're 4-wire pickups. I'm going to put a 3-way switch in. But I could always use mini toggles instead of these two. I'm not sure what I'm going to do yet as far as the aesthetics and the switching, how it's going to, be on the control plate. But in any case, I'm probably going to end up, splitting these. So there's that. We're getting close. I got the jack plate installed. Got a couple wires hooked to that and stubbed out into the control cavity as well. Last night, I actually mounted this pickup in the bridge plate and then mounted the bridge plate to the guitar. There is a couple things that I would like to add about that as well. Okay, so one thing that I did notice, this is a double stacked Seymour Duncan, so the pickup's a little thicker than a normal single coil, okay? Now, when you put your adjuster screw down through, some guys like to use surgical tubes, some guys like the springs, some guys hate the springs. They say they can hear them come through their amplifiers and make weird sounds. I like the surgical tube for this reason. Once you put the screw down through, you slide the tube up on, and it holds the screw in there, right? Because these are not easy to get everything lined up and get them all started. You can cross-thread the screws in the pickup base pretty easy too. So I do like the surgical tube. That's just me. But one thing I wanted to add was this. With this pickup that's a little thicker here, I just slid one piece of tubing on like this at first. Now this is a little bit longer than it should be. It's probably not the right screw, but for demonstration purposes, it's going to work fine. So when the pickup, when the screw is, screwed into the pickup, okay, now let's say you want to have the pickup height low. So if you don't have another piece of tubing on there, you're going to get this effect. And the pickup's going to kind of bounce up and down. And it's not that desirable, I should say. So make sure you get your tubing on there, pushed up tight, have enough tubing so it's almost right down to the end of your adjustment screw. That's probably a good rule of thumb. And that way you can lower that pickup down all the way to the plate if you want to, and it's not going to bounce up and down because there's a gap in the in between the pickup and the screw, okay? If that makes sense. Now, normally one piece of surgical tube with the right screw and you're good to go, but just wanted to point that out. Now, you might run into that with humbuckers too, depending on where the screw, the mounting screw or the adjustment screw, I should say, is on the pickup base as far as if it's a T-topped or if it's the opposite where the screw would be shorter. In some cases you need a longer screw or a shorter screw. So just kind of keep that in mind. Put enough tubing on there if you're going to use tubing to completely cover the screw, basically. You can have just a few threads poking out. You're going to need to at least, wind it in that far to attach it to the pickup base anyway. So once you've achieved that, you're good to go. So I've got all the wires poked through the wiring channels that I drilled and whatnot and routed out. Got the neck slid into the pocket. I'm waiting on the pick guard that's coming in the mail and a control plate. And I believe that's it for parts. Now, I did have to chisel out a spot for the thumb wheel on the truss rod adjuster here into the body. I'll have to make a small little cutout in the pick guard for that as well. But this is the spoke wheel type, so you can adjust your truss rod, on this end of the guitar neck, which I like. I don't really have a deep preference, or a strong preference, I should say, but I don't mind these either. I think it's a better setup than the old Fenders where you'd see guys drill a hole on an angle so they could access the flathead screw that was in there, or take your neck off to adjust your truss rod, which is kind of a pain because you got to slack the strings. Now you don't really have any way to check the relief, under string tension. Wasn't the greatest design, let's just say that. But, it worked, and once you got it set up for your string gauges that you were using, they'd stay pretty good, really, honestly, depending on climbing, of course. But in any case, I don't mind these either. So one other thing that I did do on the, I'm going to set this thumb wheel down. That just plugs in there, and that little notch is what keeps it from falling out. So once the neck's bolted on, it's good to go. Anyway, when I put the tuners on in the other video, we just kind of bolted them up real quick. Now, I put different screws in here to attach them. I absolutely hate those mounting screws they send for tuners, those little tiny head strippers, I call them. 2 turns with a screwdriver. If there's even a piece of dust in the way, you can strip the heads on those. You got to pre-drill, obviously, and all that, but they just seem to be of really cheap quality usually. Now, these are pick guard screws that I put in here. Those are not going to strip. My screwdriver didn't even slip out of them once when I screwed them in. And, this is kind of an industrial build, if you will. I just want things right. I don't want to mess around. If I want to change the tuners, I want to be able to get the screws out. I've put tuners on where, you get the screw basically tight and it strips right there. Now you can't get it out unless you take it out with vice grips. What a pain. So I'm doing mine a little bit different. Yeah, it might look a little funky, but if I want to change the tuners, it's easy. I'm not going to have to worry about, stripping the screws and getting the absolute perfect screwdriver that works most of the time. And then, like I said, when you get right down to the end, it's like, oh no. Anyway, let's get over to the bench, and I'm going to go through the issues that I had to deal with the frets, the sprouts, and all that. On a side note, I am really getting pumped to play this guitar. I cannot wait to plug this thing in. I gotta drill some strap buttons in here too. What am I thinking? Well, I gotta get the neck back off it. We'll get over to the bench here soon. I haven't bolted the neck on yet either. I should do that as well. Okie doke. Well, over here on the bench, getting ready to recrown these frets. Now, I just got done checking them with a fret rocker prior to that, and there was a bunch of high frets and some funky stuff going on. I tapped a few down with a fret hammer, and some of them didn't seem to want to go down, so I put them in the fret press and pressed them down with the fret press, and some of them went down, some of them didn't, but the ones that did go down poked out through the side of the wood. What do you do? It happens. This is a new neck, but obviously the fret tangs were a little tight, so when things dry out or don't get pressed down in there, and seated, when you press those down, remember they're going to grow a little bit because it's on a camber there. And, what do? Well, there's not much you can do. You got to, at that point, file that off and make it even so the tangs are gonna show then, which, that's not a big deal either. But it is something to be aware of, and I just wanted to point that out. When you press your frets down, if you got binding on the sides, well, that could be really bad. Where this is just wood, I'm just going to keep that filed off nice, and then I'll, finish sand it. You'll never even know I was there. But anyway, after pressing them down, there was some that just wouldn't go down, so I'm guessing the fret slots were probably not cut exactly. I heated them up with a soldering iron, figuring it could have been just glue. Still couldn't get them down, so I leveled them with a beam and sanded them off flat. Make sure your neck is straight when you do that, for sure. You don't want to sand your frets down with forward bow or back bow, because then when you straighten the neck back out, it's going to be messed up still. So we've sanded the frets down. Now I'm just going to recrown them here. I guess I've already done that one. Now I can tell just by feel. Now if you're using one of these types here, okay, as far as the file, yeah, that one hasn't been done. Now there's two sides to it, so if you flip it over and one side is right to the wood, maybe try it on the other side, put a marker on there and see what it's doing, if that side's removing it from the top or if it's actually removing it from the sides. So that's what you want to be taking off is, from the sides. You want to build that, because we flattened it out, we want to build that back up to a point or a crown. And just make sure you got the right one. And a good thing to do is, like I said, take a marker and mark each one so you know how much you're taking off and where it's coming off, you know what I'm saying? So, and, tape your fretboard off is also probably some solid advice. Now, I'm not doing that, but that's just me, and this is my guitar, so I'm not too worried about it. Now, I'm not into the wood or anything, but I'm just being careful, taking my time, and making sure that this file isn't touching the wood. That's another important thing, okay? Now, depending on the fret height, it may touch the wood, so you may have to tape it off in some cases, okay? If it's your first time doing it, get the tape out, tape her off. That's a safe bet, okay? Now, after I get this all recrowned, we'll polish them up too. I just use micro mesh usually. Now, one thing I did want to point out, after you've filed your frets and if you've had to level sand them, when you start to recrown your frets, you should surely feel little divots and dings and nicks in the frets when you run that file across it. And you're going to feel them out on the ends too, especially. But I can feel them all the way across. There's striations in there from where I sanded them. So once that you feel these little hiccups as you go across, I just usually keep doing that until it feels smooth. It's also a good idea to tap your file off, get some of those filings out of there. You want to be grinding those back into the fret that you're about to do next, so you wanted to point that out as well. Try to keep your frets, your file nice and straight. Don't want it tipped too much if you can help it. Now, I haven't really been paying attention because I'm yakking and blabbing on camera here, but I could have been off a little bit there. I don't know. I'll have to go back and look at it. Again, I'll put my magnifying glasses on here in a minute and really look these over good too. You know, it's not a bad idea to tip the neck up, take a peek at it, make sure that's rounded, okay? I mean, that's really what the whole goal is here. So don't be afraid to hold it up and take a look at it. All right, I gotta get my file turned back around. You can almost hear that, and I can certainly feel it. It just feels like it's really hanging up on something. Like it's just like hitch, 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 you know. Or it feels like there's nicks and bumps in the fret wire. But after about 4 or 5 passes, it smooths right out. So there is kind of a learning curve as far as what that feels like. You know, when you're filing your frets, even doing the edges, I want to add, I can't stress this enough, it's all about feel. You know, when you're running that down across there with your file, these work good too after you're done filing to kind of smooth things up. But anyway, when you're running a file down across there, if you feel it go, you know, like it's going to stop your file and it's not smooth, it's just, you know, keeps hanging up on those. You got to pay attention to what that feels like. Okay, so eventually it's going to start to get smoother and smoother, and that's when you really need to start to pay attention. And you'll get so you really recognize the sensation of what that feels like when you run the file across there. Same with this. You know, when you first start doing it, now even out on the ends you can kind of get a few burrs. Now you can use that to kind of knock that very tip off just lightly. Be careful though, and be paying attention to the bevel. You don't want to bevel that off anymore. I mean, I will just very lightly do that with no pressure and just see if it really hangs up or if it feels, you know, like there's a big burr there. It's just a good way to kind of double check things. And that's feeling pretty good. So the next thing I'll do is get out some micro mesh pads. Now they make different ones. This is a 2500 grit, which would be this side. This is just a sponge kind of face here with no grit in it. Really flexible and whatnot, but they do make some that are stiff too. I mean, you can bend them, but they're a little bit stiffer. And those are the ones that I like to use. Now, you want to span, you know, as many frets as you can, and I like to go back and forth like this. You can do it this way too, and that will kind of give you a rounded thing too. But, you know, I find that after I crown it, I've already got that round I'm looking for. Now I'm just going to go over it in this direction, lengthways on the fret wire. And this is just to get the rest of these striations out from the crowning file. All right. Now I'll just work my way down the fretboard. Kind of count the strokes as you go. Not a ton of pressure. You don't have to really count them. Just try to get some sort of little rhythm going. Tap your foot in time. Sing a song or something. Okay, so again, I can still feel like scratchy surfaces on these frets. So, you know, pay attention to that, what it feels like, what it sounds like, because it'll all kind of help you the next time you do it. And I have noticed after you do it for a while, you kind of depend on those things, really, honestly. Now, as I get up here towards the nut, you're not going to be spanning as many frets. So what I do is just take 3 fingers, lay it right on the pad, right over that fret that I'm concentrating on. I just let the other one kind of ride on the other fret so it doesn't scratch the fretboard. Again, it's not a bad idea to tape these off. we're working with an unfinished kind of open satin grain here, finish, if you will. And I'm not really worried about scratching. If this was polyed or clear coated, then I probably would tape this off. But the whole science behind this thing that I'm doing is not to get any pressure on the wood. I just want that pad to ride on the fret wire without touching the wood in between. And, you know, with a little elbow grease, they're starting to get a nice shine on them. Now, if I want to use this soft pad, you know, what I will do is set this hard one on top of it. And that's just to keep it, you know, kind of level. And that way my fingers aren't dipping that pad down into the wood. And just lightly, I'll go over that again and until I get it like I want it. Now, here's the thing. Once that's done, I'll take my fingernail, run it across each fret. If I feel anything at all, I'll go back and unget it and clean it up. Now, those are feeling better. I haven't done my final polish on them, but now I can feel a little bit of grit on those. A little on that one. Again, it's all about feel, because at the end of the day, that's what we're talking about, what this is going to feel like when you're playing it. So, get your frets polished. When I change strings, I polish my frets. I don't crown them or anything. I just, unless there's divots starting to get into them, I may hit them real quick. But I do polish them and get that gunk and oxidization off there. Excuse me, it's hard to say that word, I guess. And, you know, it just feels better to play. Everything feels smooth and you bend a note and all that. Got a little dent down here. I don't know what that's from. I did feel a dent in a couple of these frets too. Maybe it just got dropped in the shop or something. Who knows, but I'm not going to worry about that too much. I guess I could fill it in too and then just kind of buff that out. With dark wood, that's easier to do because you can hide a lot of stuff, you know. You can hide holes and dents and scratches pretty easy. Ebony's good for that. Rosewood can be too. Anyway, that's just something to consider, you know, like when you're pounding your frets down or pressing them down, if you have binding on there, be careful because you can't see underneath. You don't know how long that tang is, and I just ran into it, so it is what it is. It looked cool with the wood hiding the fret tangs, but it's just a deal breaker. It was like railroad tracks running my thumb across. I was like, wow, because it felt really smooth. I had it just like I wanted it, but when I pressed the frets back down, boom, it spread them out, pushed the wood out. Thankfully, it didn't like crack it and blow a big chip out. I got lucky, I guess, because you know, that was my biggest fear after I did a couple. I was like, oh, that's not good, but it didn't seem to do it. Maybe it's the wood quality. In any case, it is what it is. It feels good in my hand now. There's no bumps. I don't feel any fret tang or anything like that, so it's more of a visual thing, which I'm not really looking at that playing the guitar anyway, so I'm all good. Anyway, thanks again, folks. We'll see you guys real soon. I should have this buttoned up very soon. I got to get a pick guard on it, which should be coming today or tomorrow. And what else do I need? Oh, my control plate, cover, and that's pretty much it. I've got the tuners all on, like we just looked at a little bit ago, and the body's coming along good. I dug out my push-pull pots and a three-way switch. We're getting really close here now, so hopefully within the next few days I'll have it up and running, and I'm really anxious to see what this thing sounds like. It feels good. I slid the neck on and picked the guitar up, and it feels like it's balanced real well, not too heavy. Feels like right about, middle of the road. So hopefully it has a nice resonance to it, which I'm really hopeful that it will. And should sound good. We got good electronics, good pots, good neck, good tuners. How can you beat it, right? All right, we'll see you guys real soon. Be good. Okie doke.